why we provide different internet solutions for your different needs. SLT Fiber, 4G and ADSL. SLT Broadband, just the way you want it.
Tonight, be grateful. The UPFA's General Secretary is expecting gratitude from the SLPP for safeguarding their parliamentary seats with a letter. Port in English crosshairs. International media reports say that the British are eyeing the Trincomalee port to set up a naval base.
India is interested in this, as well as Japan.
Dipping into the kitty. Reports surface saying that Sri Lanka is dipping into its reserves to repay a 5-year sovereign bond maturing next week. Truth or myth? Is MSG really harmful for humans?
We have to use that flavor enhancer with proper dosing. Instead of MSG, artificial MSG, we can use our natural sources.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9 on this Saturday, the 12th of January 2019.
මේ උත්සව සමයේ ස්මාර්ට් ඇන්ඩ්‍රොයිඩ් තාක්ෂණයෙන් එන සිංග විස්ටා TV එකක් මිලදී ගන්නා ඔබට හිත පිරෙන්න වාසි රැසක් ඕනෑම සිංග ප්‍රදර්ශනාගාරයකින්.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Naika. Now let's start you off with your local stories. Now only 56 MPs were present at the Constitutional Assembly meeting in Parliament yesterday, during which Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe presented reports pertaining to constitutional reforms. Given the seriousness of the document that is supposed to be drafted on the back of these proposals submitted in Parliament and the never-ending confusion between the wording unitary and united state, the poor attendance of MPs aroused a fair amount of suspicion.
The Constitutional Council met at 10 a.m. at the Parliament chamber after a lapse of over a year yesterday. The meeting was convened to table the report prepared by the panel of experts for the steering committee headed by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and representations made by political parties on drafting a new constitution at the Constitutional Assembly yesterday. As it was the first time the Constitutional Assembly gathered in Parliament following the formation of the new government, exceptionally low attendance were reported during the Constitutional Council session. The meeting saw low attendance from the government and the TNA, who vehemently supported the establishment of a new constitution. Meanwhile, the reports pertaining to the constitutional reforms presented to the Parliament yesterday was heavily criticised by politicians.
It is very clear that what is being done with regard to the constitutional reform process is entirely undemocratic. It is totally lacking in transparency. There is no openness at all. And this is made clear by the fact that the backbenchers of the United National Party themselves are asking the government to clarify the meaning of Oromittu Nadu. That is a basic feature of the proposed constitution. That is the name that is sought to be given to the Republic of Sri Lanka. Even with regard to that, there is no clarity. When this debate was taking place in Parliament, out of a total of 225 members of Parliament, 169 were not present in the chamber. So this alone shows how much interest there is in the proposed constitutional reform process on the part of the members of Parliament. This is the desire, the priority of the diaspora, the Tamil National Alliance and various foreign elements. The entire process is contrary to standing orders. According to the standing orders of Parliament, a minimum of 3 days must be given before a debate can take place on this report, in order to give members of Parliament the opportunity to make themselves familiar with the provisions of the proposed amendment. That opportunity was not given. This was thrust upon them. And the debate had to take place immediately. The only thing that can be presented to Parliament in this situation is a report of the steering committee. What was submitted was not a report of the steering committee, that was admitted by the government. What we see today is an attempt behind the backs of the people This parliament does not have the moral authority to foist on the people of this country a constitution that will govern generations to come. Anybody who has a proposal with regard to a new constitution can submit that to the judgment of the people. So let the people in their wisdom decide what is appropriate. It cannot be done in this way. We don't think that a constitution is a priority today with the acute economic hardships that the people are undergoing.
A good political decision should be arrived at. This decision should allow lands to be reclaimed and police powers to be vested. We do not want to conquer the borders of others. We prefer to live in peace and freedom within our borders. We expect a peaceful environment under an indivisible country where we can make our own decisions. This is the reason why we are in favour of this constitution. This should receive the two-thirds majority in Parliament. The constitution can only be amended if it garners the support of 50% during a referendum. A solution to racism will have to be found through or according to international mechanisms if they fail to pass the new constitution in Parliament. The government is surviving on the 14 votes of the TNA. Therefore, the government should do everything that the TNA requests. The Prime Minister himself says that it is not a federal state but unitary. If he reads it in detail, the first clause is the proposal to change the unitary state. There is no constitution and no draft constitution. We do not agree with the opinions of the experts. They created a phantom of separatism through this draft constitution. The truth is that no draft has yet been made in Parliament. A new constitution is not possible according to the current composition of Parliament either. It was utter rubbish that they presented in the name of the constitution. The Prime Minister wants to win the trust of the Tamil people for the next presidential election.
Now, of course, veering off politics with the promise of coming back, of course. Sri Lanka is known for its strategic location in the Indian Ocean and has raised many questions over its maritime security, and now the country hopes to balance relations between its close allies such as India and China. In a recent media report, however, it has been said that Trincomalee is voted as the most favoured location for Britain's ambitious plan to set up its military bases in South Asia. First at 9 spoke to Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies, Asanga Bekon, to see how this move will impact relations among Sri Lanka and other nations, as well as to see whether it's favourable for the country.
Foreign media reports that the Trincomalee port is reported to be voted as the most favoured location for Britain's ambitious plan to set up its military bases in South Asia in the post-Brexit era. They say Britain is expected to open military bases in South Asian country and Caribbean as a part of its ambitious plan to increase its military presence in the region in order to regain its position as a global player. Quoting informed sources, international media reports revealed that British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has hinted at Britain's desire to set up military bases in South Asia, and likely locations are Trincomalee in Sri Lanka, Maldives or Singapore. In the post-Brexit era, if Britain moves to set up a military base in Trincomalee, it would invariably upset the two regional superpowers India and China. The British Foreign Secretary recently told The Telegraph that the Defence Secretary urges Britain to stop downplaying the country's influence internationally and recognise that the UK will stand tall on the world stage after leaving the European Union. That said, however, Britain has refused that any such arrangements with Sri Lanka exists. Given these comments floating around, we contacted Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies, Asanga Abegunasekara.
The reason being the Trincomalee being strategically important is because it's facing towards the Bay of Bengal, and most of the BIMSTEC countries and the rich Bay of Bengal is where Kwappu as well as Chittagong, most of the ports have been built by the Chinese also, and the Chinese sphere of influence is clearly visible in this part of the region. So if British trying to do the base, it's going back to its historical, when they moved out from Trincomalee, it was in 1957, and even after the independence, they didn't move out. Trincomalee is facing towards the eastern Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka is also sitting at the rimland, in the outer crescent of the rimland.
He also went on to elaborate on the understanding Sri Lanka had with India over the Trinco port, dating back to the times of Sri Lanka's first executive president.
India has clearly mentioned, if you look at the 13th Amendment, which is the Indo-Sri Lanka Agreement, the letters exchanged between Jaya Jayawardena and Rajiv Gandhi. Some of them clearly identify that Sri Lanka, if we are grieving for a military purpose or military base, the Trincomalee should not be given in a way to consider India first. And this is the same thing which it says about, which was given in 2003. So India is interested in this, as well as Japan. You can see from the Japanese Prime Minister's visit last year, and also this 17th fleet, the US 17th fleet came in last August. So all these countries have an interest, and this is because of the Chinese influence that's coming in to the Indian Ocean and the sphere of influence that's spreading. So starting from Djibouti.
Of course, we are grateful to Asanka Gunasekara for taking time out of his busy schedule to speak to us. Now, moving on to politics, as promised, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa today echoed the words he uttered in Parliament when the Constitutional Council met yesterday, saying one race should not suppress another. Speaking at a public rally in Homagama this evening, the opposition leader went on to say that it is important to seek the public's opinion as well in the constitutional process.
We cannot move forward as a nation by segregating and dividing the country. I even spoke about this in Parliament yesterday. We cannot show hate amongst different races and religions. No one has the right to do this. No one should work to instigate such acts either. A constitution should be made by ensuring that our needs are identified and by respecting each other. It does not matter what race they are. The country cannot move forward if one party is creating issues to another party by winning them over and then proceeding to let them down. Which is why I said it is important we request the public to bring their constitution while we're bringing ours. We must create a government that strengthens the people and the society. It is not the leaders that need strengthening but the people. This is the sort of government we wish to create. We cannot allow an environment where the country is being run according to one's whims and fancies. Neither can other nations interfere in our affairs.
Now, should the Sri Lanka Bodhijana Peramuna be grateful to the United People's Freedom Alliance? Well, the General Secretary of the UPFA sure does think so. Why? Well, speaking to media at a rally in Hambantota today, MP Amaravira said that a letter which he sent to the Speaker saw the position of the opposition leader as well as MPs protected, and the country could have witnessed something else entirely different had he not done so.
All of us parliamentarians are now in the same team. One of the journalists here asked me about my comments on the opposition leader and the positions of parliamentarians. The letter which ensured that parliamentary positions were protected was written with much eagerness. If my letter was not sent, then maybe there would have been significant change in the country. Many positions, including that of MPs, would have been lost. But I did not want this to happen. The UPFA had no intention to do this, so that the UNP and TNA will be strengthened. We wrote this letter ensuring that the position of the opposition leader also fell on our side, whilst protecting the parliamentary position of others. There were no other expectations. All what we wanted to do was to fulfill our duties to the people and create a strong opposition party. Therefore, I believe all those in the SLPP will be grateful to us and work together so that we can win the next election. Meanwhile, speaking at another event in Virakatiya, the MP spoke on the introduction of the extradition law in order to bring former Central Bank Governor Arjuna Mahendran to book. Introduce the extradition law and come to an agreement with Singapore. Bring back Arjuna Mahendran and take action against him. There is a law that then needs to come to pass which will ensure that all these monies are recovered. Once this is recovered, we will have funds to do a Gamperaliya project in an electorate to the tune of over 500 million rupees.
Defections are nothing new in politics. Now, hinting at another major crossover, General Secretary of the United National Party today boasted that his party can win the next presidential election. Addressing a public gathering in Kurunegala today, he moved to say that some heavyweights of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party as well as the Sri Lanka Bodhijana Peramuna will be backing the United National Party during the upcoming polls.
We request the public's help to win in another few months, and we promise to work 10 times harder than we did during the last 4 years. Mark my words, certain leaders of the SLPP and the SLFP you would never believe would support us and will stand with us hand in hand during any upcoming election. We have the most advantage in the presidential election. It is during a presidential election that we can win over the entire voter base of the country. I would like to say that we can definitely win the upcoming presidential election, and there is no doubt about that.
අපිට ඊළඟ එන ජනාධිපතිවරණය අපිට නියත වශයෙන්ම ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මම තමයි ආශා කරන්නේ.
Now we're going to talk about something we are very much aware of and rarely talk about. Now, the use of monosodium glutamate, or more commonly known as MSG, is a polarizing topic with two banks of people arguing for and against it. Now, restaurants serving Chinese food are often accused of using MSG, which has led to some people being put off by Chinese food. Now, that's not all. The argument is that MSG is used in food served at low-end eateries, as well as some of the most popular fast food franchises serving some of the most consumed food items in the cities, such as French fries, burgers and fried chicken and so forth. Now, some accuse that consumption of MSG is harmful to human health, while others debate that it only makes you want to eat a bit more. So, basically, the criticism leveled against the use of MSG. Now, is it really fair? That's the question. So we wanted to get to know this, and we wanted to get to the bottom of this. This is what we found.
What is the taste you remember when you think of French fries, fried chicken, Chinese food, or simply a street food item popular among locals called vade? This taste is called umami, which is the fifth taste found in food apart from sweet, sour, salt and bitterness, corresponding to the flavor of glutamates, especially monosodium glutamate, also known as MSG. Umami seasoning, available worldwide under the brand name Ajinomoto, was discovered by Professor Kikune Ikeda through a seaweed at the Department of Chemistry of Tokyo Imperial University in 1907. The umami taste substances, however, is not only included in monosodium glutamate, but also in vegetables such as tomato, potato, Chinese cabbage, mushroom, carrot, soybean. It's even present in green tea. Seafood such as fish, seaweed, oyster, prawn, crab, as well as types of meat like beef, pork and chicken also have it. Even cheese isn't spared, and MSG contributes heavily to the characteristic taste of these foods. The world, however, is divided on MSG because of the controversy surrounding it. The popular argument is that MSG extracted and crystallized from seaweed and other types of foods is considered to be harmful for the health, unlike natural MSG. But how can it be? We contacted Professor M.J. Vansapala from the University of Sri Jawadanapura to get an explanation into this.
MSG or monosodium glutamate help to improve the type 2 diabetic conditions, obesity, certain cancer conditions in our body. That will be a big problem. So most of our school children more like to consume starchy food. That's why among the school crowd there is a very big problem, that is obesity. That is one of the big side effect of the MSG, artificial MSG.
Apart from these, it is a worldwide claim that when added to food commercially available, MSG causes headache, flushing, sweating, facial pressure or tightness, numbness, tingling or burning in the face, neck and other areas, rapid fluttering heartbeats or heart palpitations, chest pain and nausea. In the meantime, the other half of the world argues that these symptoms and the claim that MSG is unhealthy is a myth. Although we tried to contact researchers in Sri Lanka who wrote papers about MSG or their side effects, as well as who argued why it is not that harmful for human health, many of them hesitated to talk to us about their studies. But in Sri Lanka, the use of MSG is at a high level, and when contacted, manager of Lanka Foods S. Bala said their company imports a minimum of 150 metric tons of MSG a month, and three other players in the market stated that it is estimated that 7,000 metric tons flood the market each year. One other popular argument on the internet about MSG is that the fear of Ajinomoto or MSG is created by the Western world out of xenophobia. Although MSG was first banned in the Western world during the World War II in 1958, Safety Evaluation and Recommendations of U.S. Food and Drug Administration declared glutamate as a generally recognized as safe ingredient, along with other commonly used food ingredients such as salt, vinegar and baking powder. Leading international food authorities such as International World Health Organization, UN Food and Agriculture Organization's Evaluation Committee, the European Commission's Scientific Committee for Food, and the United States Food and Drugs Administration have issued statements claiming that the use of MSG is safe for human consumption.
We have to use that flavor enhancer with proper dosage. In Sri Lankan food industry, generally we use those flavor enhancers spices and other food additives without those legal limits. Although we have legal limits, most of the food processors, food restaurant owners, they don't follow those proper regulations. But nowadays there is a rapid change in Sri Lankan food market. Our consumers very rapidly identify MSG free food because that is their request. Therefore, nowadays researchers, scientists try to find natural sources containing glutamic acid. Right? We have certain natural sources available in the market, certain onions, mushrooms, cabbage like natural sources which contain glutamic acid. So we can add those sources and along with the salt we can prepare our own dishes which nourishes and it's very tasty. Therefore, instead of MSG, artificial MSG, we can use our natural sources.
However, when bringing you this story, the question we had ourselves is not whether MSG is good or bad for health. If you do a search on the internet to see if MSG is good or bad, it does not give you a definite answer, but instead it is flooded with articles, research material or videos which try to prove that MSG is not as bad as it claims to be. If MSG is proven to be not guilty of being harmful for humans, why are there so many researchers who still claim this to be harmful for human health and do hundreds of videos trying to prove that MSG is not as bad as most people think? Why is it so difficult to come to a common conclusion? What do all these indicate to the consumers worldwide? Could it be that all international bodies and others who are in support of MSG in bed with manufacturers, or is MSG really innocent? It looks like it'll have to be decided by you.
There sure is something to think about. Now stay tuned because coming up on the other side of this break is business news. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, certain media reports say that Sri Lanka is dipping into its declining reserves to repay a 5-year sovereign bond maturing next week. Reuters, quoting sources from both the central bank and finance ministry, said that Sri Lanka has arranged $1 billion to repay a 5-year sovereign bond maturing next week, partly from its reserves. The article went on to say, or note, that originally 3 state banks were to borrow up to $1 billion from foreign sources before the end of 2018 to pay off the loan. Quoting an unnamed source aware of the payment, details of the report said that as the government was unable to raise the whole $1 billion through the state banks, it decided to also use reserves to fill the gap. The Reuters reports say their source declined to comment on how much the reserves would be used for the payment. This comes in a backdrop where gross official reserves amounted to $7 billion at the end of November last year. It was 7.9 billion, that is, US dollars in the previous month. Moving on to other stories, Nissan Motor Company today has broadened its investigation into ousted chairman Carlos Ghosn, who dealing that took part in the United States, India and Latin America. In one aspect of their internal probe, company investigators are looking into decisions made in the United States by Jose Munoz, who led Nissan's North American operations from 2014 to 2018. Munoz, its chief performance officer, who was widely considered as a close ally to Ghosn and a possible successor to lead the automaking partnership between Nissan and France's Renault, announced his resignation on LinkedIn yesterday. The announcement stated that Munoz had elected to resign from the company effective immediately without offering details. He becomes the latest executive casualty since Nissan in November removed Ghosn as its chairman and fired representative director Greg Kelly. The resignation deals another blow to the Japanese automaker, which is grappling with the scandal at a time when it is struggling to shore up profitability in the United States and expand aggressively in China. Moving on to news from overseas, firefighters have been tackling a blaze in a business in the center of Paris after a powerful explosion killed 2 of the firefighters. 10 people are seriously injured, while cars were also wrecked and other buildings were damaged by the blast as well. Police suspect a gas leak caused the explosion, which occurred in a bakery around 9 this morning. They have asked people to stay away from the area and allow emergency services access. In the immediate aftermath, smashed cars and debris from other shop fronts littered the streets in front of the bakery as people stood around looking stunned by the force of the explosion. Paris and other French cities have been bracing themselves for a new round of anti-government protests by yellow vest demonstrators. With tomorrow, although the explosion is not thought to be connected with the demonstrations. A gas leak had been reported in the building and firefighters had been on their way to deal with it when the explosion occurred. Now, the White House has condemned a New York Times report that FBI opened an inquiry into whether President Donald Trump was secretly working for Russia. The paper says that law enforcement officials became concerned by Trump's behavior in May of 2017 when he sacked FBI Director James Comey. The investigation reportedly examined whether Trump was a national security threat. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders described the situation as absurd. Issuing a statement, Huckabee Sanders said, quote, James Comey was fired because he's a disgraced partisan hack, and his deputy, Andrew McCabe, who was in charge at the time, is a known liar fired by the FBI. She also took aim at former U.S. President Barack Obama, saying he let Russia and other foreign adversaries push America around, and defended Trump, saying he has actually been tough on Russia. In 2016, U.S. intelligence agencies concluded that Russia had launched cyber attacks and planted fake news stories on social media in a bid to boost Donald Trump's damage, or his campaign's damage, on his rival Hillary Clinton. And there's more from the US president for all the wrong reasons, as the partial shutdown of the US government has become the longest on record, with still no end in sight to the political standoff. Today it reaches its 22nd day, overtaking the previous record, the 21-day shutdown in 1995-96 under then-President Bill Clinton. President Donald Trump is refusing to approve a budget unless it includes funds for a wall on the Mexican border.
President Donald Trump said yesterday that he would not declare a national emergency for now as a way of securing funds for a border wall and ending a partial government shutdown, adding that he would rather see the U.S. Congress act. The U.S. shutdown has become the longest on record, with no end in sight to the political standoff between the U.S. president and the Congress. Today, the shutdown entered its 22nd day. The U.S. president continues to refuse approving a budget unless it includes funds for a wall on the Mexican border. Democrats have rejected his request for $5.7 billion. About a quarter of the federal government is still out of operation until a spending plan is agreed, leaving 800,000 employees unpaid. Yesterday, those workers, including prison guards, airport staff and FBI agents, missed their first salaries of the year.
It's the easy way out. But Congress should do this. This is too simple. It's too basic. And Congress should do this. If they can't do it, if at some point they just can't do it, this is a 15-minute meeting. If they can't do it, I will declare a national emergency. I have the absolute right to do it. It says as clear as you can, this is something that the Democrats should do. And I don't want to give an easy way out of something as simple as this. Not only simple, it's easy. And it's going to secure our, we have a country that is under siege. You could actually, a lot of people don't like the word invasion. We have a country that's being invaded by criminals and by drugs, and we're going to stop it. So I want the Democrats to come back to Washington and vote.
We're going to move in for another break, and when we come back, it's sports. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9 and it's time for sports. Now, Hardik Pandya and KL Rahul have been suspended by India's cricket board, the BCCI, after their comments about women on a television show. During an Indian television show, Pandya spoke about what they called hookups with several women, and the pair aired their lascivious desires in relation to women. The suspension by the BCCI came despite Indian captain Virat Kohli moving to douse the firestorm created by the comments made by the duo. He said these are purely individual opinions. The Indian cricket team do not support views like that, and that has been communicated. Kohli said the two concerned players felt what has gone wrong and they have understood the magnitude of their comments. Moving on to tennis, men's world number one Novak Djokovic paid tribute to rival Andy Murray yesterday upon hearing the news that the Scot planned to retire this year. A teary-eyed Murray signalled the Australian Open could be his last professional tournament, with the pain of his right hip proving unbearable. Djokovic said it had been sad to see Murray suffer through his injuries, as the pair had risen through the junior ranks together. The 14-time Grand Slam champion is the favourite to claim what would be a record 7th Australian Open title, which begins on Monday.
I don't know. I mean, it's quite a shocker for me, honestly, because I mean we're the same age, same generation, and it's kind of sad to see him going through what he has been going through in the last couple of years with these injuries. You know, as someone who has been through a major injury with my elbow in the last couple of years, I can definitely, you know, empathize with him and relate to what he's going through. Obviously, probably the extent of his injury is even worse than mine. We've been rivals and we played some epic matches all over the world. So, you know, it's kind of sad to know that he might play his last Australian Open, but I do wish him all the best.
Now, time for you to get the latest from the world of entertainment with our segment, 70 Seconds of Entertainment.
South African-born US theatre director Liesl Tommy will direct a new biopic about the Queen of Soul. Director Liesl became the first black woman to earn a Tony Award nomination for Best Direction of a Play for 2016's Eclipsed. Oscar-winning Dreamgirls star Jennifer Hudson, currently working in the UK on the new series of The Voice, was apparently handpicked by Aretha herself for the role before her death in August last year. The writer of Oscar-tipped film Green Book has apologized for a 2015 tweet in which he said he saw Muslims in New Jersey celebrating the 9/11 attacks. Nick Vallelonga tweeted his support for Donald Trump, who said he had seen thousands and thousands cheering a claim that is being widely discredited. Vallelonga wrote that Mr. Trump was 100% correct, but has now said sorry, quote, for the hurt I have caused. Maverick genre-defining rapper Octavian has won BBC Music's Sound of 2019. Endorsed by Drake but entirely self-made, the 23-year-old beat pop singer King Princess and balladeer Grace Carter to take the title, which has previously gone to Adele, Sam Smith, Haim and Sigrid.
And that's it from all of us here at First to 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.